Hari Om Tat Sat. Welcome to Swami Jyotirmayananda Society, our journey to self-realization. Please subscribe our channel for the mystical meanings of the scriptures and to enjoy daily satsang. We are currently exploring the book The Mystery of the Soul, Katha Upanishad, commentary by Swami Jyotirmayananda, narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. We are currently on chapter number 2, section 1, mantra number 2. So, if one were to gain the whole world and they had the ability to live thousands of years, yet he would not be able to quench the thirst of the desiring mind. Time is simply not enough, no matter how many years you have. It's like pouring clarified butter or ghee on fire. You continue pouring it, the fire will continue to burn. Desires are endless. Children alone continue to repeat the same pleasures again and again with the vain expectation of being fulfilled by the waters of the mirage. How can that fulfill you? They continue to whirl in the cycles of birth and death. Therefore, the cycle continues, the dream continues, the ignorance continues. But the wise men are those who have taken recourse to the practice of listening, meditation, and reflection. They have transmuted their desires into the flame of spiritual aspiration. They start enjoying it. You cannot force yourself to be away, otherwise, the mind will constantly think of them. So, therefore, you have to sublimate the desires and find something higher, better. Turn worldly love into divine love. That's one way. Since they have no aspiration for self realization, the vast majority of people are like children groping in the world of their dreams only. They were given this human life to accomplish something big, but they got satisfied by just becoming executives and owning cars and houses and success and having a family. And whatever little they did, all a mirage. One wave comes and everything gets scattered. Whereas all this while, with much less effort than all that they did, they could have attained self realization. But this is why Yama also knows this, Lord Krishna also knows this, all the sages and saints know it, that only a few deserving souls will aspire for this lofty goal. Although it's accessible to everybody, the same self resides everywhere. So, moving on to mantra 3, chapter 2, section 1. It is due to the self that one knows form, taste, smell, sound, touch, and diverse worldly pleasures. For the self, nothing remains unknown. This self indeed is Brahman. It's another deep shloka. It has been explained that a dhira, who is a spiritual hero, turns his gaze away from the objects of the senses and directs it to the self. Instructions pertaining to the self is given by the great Vedic utterance Tat Tvam Asi, thou art that. This mantra and the following two mantras present an analysis of thou. They define the true basis of the individual soul, which is the absolute self. You have divinity residing inside of you. Think about that for a minute. You have God in you. You don't have to look for God in pilgrimage centers and temples and external forms, although He's there also. But it's much easier to find Him in you because you know yourself better than others, don't you? So, therein lies the effort. But you cannot do it alone. You need a competent teacher to navigate this path with you. The pleasures of the senses are not experienced by the senses themselves. Senses are simply instruments to deliver the news, to bring you the thought. But even the mind, if it is devoid of the illuminating light of the soul, is unable to reveal the objects of the world, isn't it? So much mental illness problems these days in the world, so much stress, turbulence, and people, they have everything, all the luxuries, but they are unhappy, they don't enjoy them. So the individual soul itself is a reflection of the self. The realities of an individual seem to be illumined by the light of the soul, but this light is merely a reflection of the divine self. So it's all this reflection. Through that reflection, our intellect works, mind works, senses work, etc. Therefore, the true experiencer of all objects and inner states of mind is the self alone. Self meaning consciousness, Atma. When a wise aspirant discovers with his intuitive vision that this world of names and forms is superimposed upon the self, he is able to negate all that is not self. Neti, neti, not this, not this, not this. That's what an aspirant does. Tries to find Atma through introspection. Figuratively speaking, there then nothing remains other than the self. If you remove everything that is not self, am I this body? No, because if I was the body, I would continue, but then the body dies. Am I this mind? No. If I was, why would my mind be high and low? Why would it be depressed and ecstatic? Goes through changes. Atma is changeless. So think like that, and everything slowly starts to then be delayered, and you find the self. Figuratively speaking, it is the light source which is responsible for a cinema show, and with the absence of the light source, nothing can be projected on the screen. In the same way, without the light of Brahman, there can be neither the individual soul nor the world process in which it is confined. So, that therein lies the creation, the very essence through which life form opens up. The sun's light falling on a mirror which is placed correctly in a room is able to reveal the contents of the room. Yet the sun is untouched by the contents of the room that are illumined by its reflected light. In the same way, the light of the self reflecting in the mirror of the mind, assuming the role of the individual soul, reveals the contents of one's individualized consciousness, which is why we are called the jiva, individual souls. Yet the self is beyond all limitations of mind and senses, beyond everything. That which both sustains and transcends the mind and senses, and that which is in fact the very reality and light behind the names and senses, is the self. When the self is known, nothing remains unknown. Everything is known. You have decoded the mystery of the universe. Therefore, that is what we term as enlightenment. The self is non dual, eternal, and infinite. Moving on to mantra number 4, chapter 2, section 1. Having known the all pervading, the greatest of all, the divine self by which he is able to experience the states of waking and dream again and again, a wise yogi goes beyond grief. No more grief, and grief is what grips us in this world. The self is the basis of the experience in both the dream and the waking states. During deep sleep, the self is veiled by ignorance or avidya. Therefore, one knows nothing. In your deep sleep, you forget about all your worries, tensions, stress. You forget who you are, even. During dream state, avidya modifies itself into the experiences of dream. The soul identified with the astral body becomes the experiencer of the dream objects through its subtle senses. Therefore, you see things in your dream, you see colors in your dream, you hear voices in your dream, you go through emotions of happiness or fear in your dream, and yet when you wake up, There is nothing. Everything was an illusion. So, when awakened, the soul becomes identified with the physical body and experiences the world of objects through the physical sense organs. So, it is the undifferentiated experience of ignorance during deep sleep that becomes differentiated into the experiences of dream and waking states. Therefore, you have three states: waking, dream, and deep sleep. When the veil of ignorance is removed, one realizes that which sustains the three states of consciousness: waking, dream, and deep sleep. You go beyond that. This is called the fourth state, the Turiya, transcendental state, absolute self. Having realized this self, one does not entertain the illusions of doership and enjoyership. I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. They're all gone because now you are at the source itself. The self is beyond action and its fruits. This limited notion, I am the doer of so many deeds, I am the enjoyer of various pleasures of the world, automatically creates limited impressions, or also known as malin vasanas. Malin vasanas are impure, impurities that go within. So, therefore, that creates muddy water, hard to see when impurities exist, which gives rise to grief. When the ego sense is dissolved by the light of knowledge, one goes beyond all forms of grief. So, with this, we conclude our satsang for today. In tomorrow's satsang, we will start from chapter 2, section 1, mantra number 5. This is Swami Nikhilananda. Om Tat Sat.